the question or the topic of our interview is human oversight in artificial intelligence-based tutoring systems. And our first question is, how can educators find the right balance between artificial intelligence-generated recommendations and their own professional judgment to ensure professionalized and meaningful tutoring experience for students?
It's a good question. So first of all, hello, Erika. I just give a brief introduction of myself to understand as well the context and my experience from which I will be talking today. So I'm Lucas, CEO of Turing College. And Turing College is AI-driven online school where we teach data science, machine learning, programming, data analytics. And we have been doing this already for 4 years, and we have more than 1,000 active students currently at Turing College from more than 40 countries all around the world. All the education is online, and our goal is to create the most efficient, automated online school where symbiosis of AI and instructor will lead to high ratio of students taught per instructor, which means you have an instructor and potentially it could even teach thousands of students, not tens of students, which is traditionally happening in classical traditional educational systems. So from our experience, not even speaking about AI generated recommendations, but speaking about the balance of that kind of judgment and how much even time instructor has to make the judgment, it's important to know that if we want to maximize the time of instructor dedicated to learners, we need to take out administrational burden, first of all. And given all research, the ones that we can find in educational sciences, it's pretty clear that from like 30 to even 60% of all the time, working time of the lecturer is dedicated to administrative work. Which means that if we can take this part, we already will have quite more efficient educational systems and more better instruction quality, because then that instructor, lecturer will be able to dedicate time for new content, search, upskilling even, which as well is needed to utilize all the AI tools that are possible now. So I would see that AI, the first of all, application of AI shouldn't be fully on instruction per se, but basically taking out that administration burden. And we know that current AI systems, large language models, are really good on information extraction and summarization. So we already can use those tools to basically not to take out the recommendation or all of the instructor, but basically maximizing it. So this is one first thing I wanted to mention. Another thing to mention is that AI tools are really good on systemizing, as I mentioned, summarizing information about one particular topic or even particular learner. For instance, as we are doing all the education online, we are gathering a lot of information about learner. When they submitted the project, how much time they spent on learning, where they were learning. So this kind of data is available to us. And if you have AI system next to it, you can provide insights for the instructor, for the professor. What is the current status? What is the progress? What are potential problems the learner is facing? How to approach them, etc. So that is not really possible currently in physical education or hybrid education, because then you have limited data about the learner and its learning environment. Physically, it's really hard to gather that data. So I would say we will see a lot of changes and innovation happening first in online education, then moving to the physical education due to its natural complexity of data gathering mechanisms and processes. So those, I would say, are the key ones. What we see is not going to be replaced, but it's going to be even emphasized and maximized is importance of professors instructors' impact on students' emotional and social well-being, as the role of instructor and professor lecturer will be changing. Learners will as well adjust their expectations. So they won't be looking for instruction knowledge per se, but they will be looking for reconfirmation of, are they going on a good path on that learning? Is the chosen material provided AI instruction is good or not? Because they will need to form critical thinking skills using those AI mechanisms, AI tools. The same goes for instructors and professors as well, being able to validify information and say, is it valid or not? So this is going to be one of the biggest difficulties as well and challenges for lecturers. But I would say that reconfirmation, human support will be maximized and will have bigger impact from the lecture perspective as a role. So kind of mentor, if we can say that lecturer will become more a mentor than instructor in upcoming, I would say, decade.
Mhm. Yeah, so our maybe next question is, in what ways can artificial intelligence tools enhance human interaction in the education process, and what risks should be considered? So you already told us some, opportunities, what could be, but what risks should be considered than using this artificial intelligence, or if it is replacing, like human elements?
I think it will be replacing several parts of human element in tutoring. So one part for sure that will be replaced, instant kind of Socratic method, question and answering mechanism, because it's super inefficient to be waiting for a professor's answer for several days. When you write emails with specific question, if you have 24/7 available AI tutor, which basically can provide 99% the same level answer. So we will see that for sure. It's already happening. Good example is latest OpenAI's O1 model preview. So it was evaluated last month in several really academical benchmarks. So one was the evaluation was called advanced mathematics evaluation, which is used to evaluate complicated questions used in math olympiads in the world. And that particular model was ranked among top 500 students in United States qualifiers. So it means already is quite sufficient answering really complicated mathematical questions. Another benchmark was in coding, and it was measured in Codeforce's platform, Codeforce's evaluation tasks. So it ranked 89th percentile in competitive programming questions as well. So it's quite astonishing. And lately, I think, which is really interesting for researchers to hear, it was ranked in a GPQA ranking. So this is kind of benchmark used to evaluate PhD level accuracy in physics, biology, chemistry problems, how we can formulate, understand, and adapt those type of research questions in particular fields. And that particular model Q1 exceeded human level PhD level accuracy as well. So that is mind-boggling to understand that we already kind of in just several months that wasn't even available. We haven't had opportunity to discuss that AI can answer questions in kind of mediocre graduate level student level, but now this is the reality. And I really liked the kind of input thoughts from Terence Tao, if I pronounce correctly, one of the Mozarts of mathematics in 21st century. He's a well-renowned mathematician. So he said that he tested this model, O1 model, and he tried to compare if that is really sufficient. So he found that it's not super efficient and really depth answering mathematical questions, but he already jumped comparing to the prior model, which is GPT-4o. It already leaped to kind of really bad PhD student now to the mediocre one in mathematical questions. So if Nobel level mathematicians are already claiming that they could use those kind of AI agents, AI tools to generate new knowledge or support them in generating new knowledge, that as well proves that a lot of human element could be replaced. And we as humans, we need to rethink our intelligence and the roles of our intelligence in this 21st century, because naturally that is shifting and changing the way it's changed with calculators, for instance, and known effect as Finn reverse IQ effect, which states that from 80s and 90s, our mathematical IQ scores are decreasing due to outsourcing a lot of the human intellectual tasks in mathematics to computers. So it doesn't mean that overall intelligence is decreasing. It's increasing in other areas as like critical thinking, problem solving, but it's decreasing, for instance, in mathematical areas. So I think the same will happen a lot of with AI, and we will be outsourcing a lot of teaching human element of instruction to AI, and then teachers, professors will need to find themselves in totally different role in upcoming decade.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, I think, for the humanity, for the way how we think and how we logically develop our ideas. If AI will do everything for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So our next question is, what challenges do educators face when interpreting those AI-driven interventions, and how can they develop a critical thinking skills necessary to assess these recommendations effectively?
One thing is that it could be difficult for educators to understand how those AI models arrive at certain recommendations. So this is one, because now it's more or less black box, meaning it's super unclear how those models or how they came up with those conclusions that they provided to you on those recommendations they came up with. So this as well could mean that those AI outputs could be really biased, and then it means that it will be hard to use in educational setting, especially in real time, because you cannot really rely on those models to be as a real time assistant for you. And another thing I think to mention is we will need heavily to rethink, again, kind of repeating that idea that I shared, what is the real role and value of professor, lecturer in university, and exactly in the role as the instructor, because we haven't changed that Prussian educational model, which most of the industrial world is using now, for almost 200 years, using kind of contact learning as the main ways to provide the knowledge. And that was really logical for industrial age. But now we see we're entering a totally new age, which is AI age. And for that, we need to, I think, not even to iterate on current educational institutions, the model, but we need to totally create from the scratch, totally new one. Because we're seeing unseen change in economy. We will see unseen change in economy and unseen social interaction changes in general human world. So it's hard to change institutions that generally are really limited in their regulations to make those 180 degrees changes, because they don't have any capabilities to do so. So this will be in hands of politicians and governments to do, which again is hard to convince doing, kind of, coming and saying universities, schools should totally be reinvented and we need to stop educating now, without any clear propositions. And politicians are not the best problem solvers. They're good representatives, but giving the Manhattan Project example, I think we need the smartest minds in our world working on this, not politicians. So this is, I think, one important moment. Maybe just to expand, overflow of information is a huge problem as well for not even speaking about AI-driven interventions, but general professors. With AI-driven tools and everything, it could become better because, as I mentioned, AI tools could help to summarize a lot of noise and filter a lot of noise, and help to even prepare for the lectures and pinpoint even potential drawbacks of the professor. Those AI tools have personalization tools and can have the history of, for instance, of hundreds of lectures that the lecturer gave. It could analyze and say that, for instance, several facts that you mentioned are not true, or you have some tendencies, psychological tendencies to misinterpret data or misinterpret arguments. So that could be a kind of self-correcting, self-improvement focused tools, helping not even the students, but basically professors to become better. So I think there are many ventures ways how it could progress, and everyone is possible already with the current existing technology.
So big challenges for governments and for universities here to transform, and we already need transformed universities, and still they are, I think, even not discussed, most of them not discussed about transforming. But I was listening for you, and I thought that maybe we need some I don't know, like evaluation bodies for the IE instruments, because it's really every instrument can have different biases, and maybe somebody should review, what kind of biases, and should it be like changed, or should it be allowed to use, or maybe not, Just I thought, like at universities we have accreditation systems, so maybe we also need some accreditation systems for IE systems, just mindful thought,
Indeed, I think there's no future where educational institutions will adapt AI without some kind of compliance done beforehand. That is the reality. The difficult part is, I would say, how we can ensure logical legislations making such AI initiatives possible, because now there's not even possibility to experiment with AI-driven education or AI tutor systems as substitute or as a full replacement for instructor, because naturally, I think everybody understands that not every professor is the best instructor due to natural mechanism how academia works. Some of them are pushed to be instructors. Some of them really like to be instructors. So in this case, the ones that are really passionate there are good kind of lecturers. The question is how we can scale those people up in the terms that they would be able to deliver their lectures not for 100 learners but for thousands of learners, and then those that don't want to be instructors, help them to do the productive work they want to do. So I think AI could basically fulfill that promise and would help everyone to be more efficient and more happy in their daily lives. Currently, we have no legislations pending, no, I would say, think tanks working, as far as I know, even in European level, how we can introduce accreditation systems that would help us to make that step further, because without that, not even the first step will happen. Everything what will happen in private hands in the schools, non-formal schools like we are, for instance. But we cannot make institutional change. We cannot make as huge impact as those public institutions because all the funding is now allocated for public institutions. So they have all the resources to control how mass education is done. We provide an alternative, which is like and hundreds of times smaller than what mass education institutions are doing. So if we could, if something would happen in that sphere, I think Malta's universities are good examples because Malta, as a government, created the educational sandbox specifically in higher education to test various different higher education delivery methods and accredited more institutions that want to experiment with such models. As far as I know, they stopped that sandbox initiative last year because what naturally happened as Malta is a part of the EU higher education area, many countries noticed increase of some private innovative universities being established in Malta, and they saw them as a competition because they started entering, other countries like Germany. Germany now even decided not to accept Malta's issued degrees because of Malta's such a novel rebel approach on higher education and accreditation. So it's super, I would say, monopolistic on all school market due to accreditation and the way it happened for hundreds of years. That any new initiative is not really present, or if it's happened, it's really the market itself, the mechanism, as like in Matrix. Neo was fighting the Matrix. It's similar analogy here, and it's not good or bad, but this is how everything happens with bureaucratic systems. So I guess what is good that AI will make very fast apparent that the situation the current we live in is not even possible to maintain the normal operational educational system. All the learners will be faking their written assignments with ChatGPT. It will be hard to test them if we will continue moving that industrial educational system way. That either we do really fast and critical changes in our educational systems, or it will collapse entirely, and we won't be able to control the quality talent output in those institutions. So I think we're really facing this situation, and this could, I would hope that it won't escalate to a huge crisis in general educational world and institutions. But as far as I see it, the probability is really increasing because nothing is really done in that regard.
Yeah, interesting topic. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we have a few more questions. How can artificial intelligence tools be used to support human-centered approach in tutoring while respecting the individuality and diverse needs of each student?
Good question. So when we speak about the individuality of the learner, important features of this individuality could be summarized in in the pace of learner. Can they learn on the pace they are most comfortable with? The style of learning. Some of learners like more to get voice inputs of information, others more text written. So this is one. Adaptive learning systems come in place to provide such opportunities for learners to get such on-demand type of content, basically the same content but in different formats. Really great example, I think, which could easily be adapted by many educators now is the latest Google tool called Notebook LLM. What it does, you can just paste any YouTube video, you can paste any text, and in just several minutes, it generates 10 minutes podcast in audio format. So you can listen the same information in really engaging podcast type format, and every educator now can use it. And basically, in I would say 1 hour, you can summarize hundreds of hours of content, written content into voice type, podcast type format, which is quite astonishing and adaptable. So we will see more and more those kind of tools popping up and emerging. And again, getting back to the reality, I think the biggest bottleneck is again the legislations, because the most of education and tutoring that is happening now is through the perspective that it should be synchronous education, and all the funding and all the programs in universities and schools are built around synchronous education. And the way we understand synchronous education is that lecture should be present in the classroom, and if that lecture is not present, that learning hour couldn't be funded for the university or school. So even if we build that, basically that's the reality how universities get funded, not many opportunities for universities are to implement such tools, because it's not how they will get funded, and they couldn't justify the spending on those innovative tools. So if we could change that, we will focus more on outcome-based education, and we have testing systems, then that human-centered approach would be more possible. And maybe we could even sponsor AI tutoring classes as well for institution, not I mean for a lecture, because again, I think we're really now limited as a world, education world, on like first principles of how the money comes into university schools. And if that won't be changed, it will be really hard to experiment with any other initiatives. So this is the way I see, because we try to get accreditation as higher education institution in Europe. We try to get into formal education, and we started, and our model is quite innovative already. So we tried to kind of reverse engineer, how we can, with the non-formal education, as a non-formal education provider, to get into formal education. And we saw that basically the legislation is super protecting that you won't implement any innovative approaches. Nevertheless, results, if you take, we do A/B test, results are amazing. Like everything is super better than, traditional, that kind of contact tower methodology. But, nobody can do nothing about that, because that's how, you get accredited. This is how you become the formal institution, by just implementing old school methodologies.
Or we need a lot of time, to change the mindset of the politicians. But maybe not mainly politicians. I think there is a huge resistance at the universities for the change, and that's why politicians do not make those changes. So.
Totally. It's the system itself, because I really liked one research I read, which analyzed more United States universities, and stated that amount of administrative staff increased almost twofold, while the head of learners decreased like 20-30% in the last 40-30 years, which means we have more people to support even less learners than 30-40 years ago. Even we have all the tools, AI, etc. So it's super contradictory, how that is even possible in efficient economy.
Yeah, thank you. And our last question is, what role does human oversight play in ensuring that artificial intelligence-driven educational tools remain ethical and aligned with educational values, especially in the context of fostering student engagement and growth?
Yeah, a bit to expand more on ethics part and AI application in education. I would say that it shouldn't be the biggest concern now, because we are in kind of really early stage of AI development, and we don't even have proper applications with AI. So we need kind of have that sandbox approach. Let's apply and see how it goes. We shouldn't do that in a like high scale, huge scale, and have those experiments in really controlled manner with specific amount of learners. And through that, I think we would see what specific rules, alignments are needed for those systems. Generally, if we speak about AI systems, of course, those are biased, because the data, the training data is provided for those models are labeled by humans. But latest AI models like O1, those are really improved models, and they are doing less hallucinations. They're less biased, I would say, than even average human now. So given that every human is really biased, the question is, should we really be so cautious about biases? As you know, every human is so biased, even more biased than traditional and classical AI models. So you know, it's the basic we get from AI tools is less biases than from human. So if that is the basis for discussion, I think it's not a problem to be aware. The question is, I guess, how we can again provide more time for professors, lecturers do the work they like, to have more one time with the learners, doing less administration. And if we can eliminate that part already, and not think about all those security protocols we need to implement, I think that would have better results. And this is where the focus should be now for all the creators of AI tools in education.
Mm. Okay, so thank you, Lucas, for this nice interview.